of the tiger. Dun 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 dun. Dun, dun, dun. Hello, welcome back, guys. We are back once again for another Premier League preview. Got some news today. Patrick Vieira has been sacked as Crystal Palace manager. We've also got the Champions League draw and the Europa League draw to talk about straight away. So get all your thoughts into the chat. Do you think your team is going to go far to win the Champions League or the Europa League? I'm backing Napoli or Bayern Munich in the Champions League, and I think in the Europa, Manchester United strong favourites. But don't disrespect the old lady. Juventus are slowly coming back. Chiesa's back. Vlahovic is back in the goals. So it could be a really good semi-final between Manchester United and Juventus. But how is everybody doing in the chat? We've also already got people in the chat. Ryan's in the chat as well. So Sevilla. Again, Man United faced Real Betis in Seville last night. Beat Real Betis 1-0 to get through to the quarterfinals. Mahad's in the chat as well. Dave, do you not stream on Twitch anymore? We do try to focus on YouTube a little bit so you guys can go back and watch all the streams on this channel. So I don't have any issues with that because we're getting some sort of like copyright problems which would hide the video. Then we couldn't resolve that. So we're now on YouTube, Mahad. So every Monday, the Premier League review. We've got content through the week, and of course, Fridays, the Premier League preview, live here right now. Let's talk ideas. Should United buy Florian Wirtz for a Bruno option rotation? Florian Wirtz has been very, very good since he came back from injury. I'd love to see him at number 10 for Manchester United. But anyway, guys, let's dive into the Europa League draw, then talk Champions League draw, then chat a little bit about Patrick Vieira. So the draw's been done for the quarterfinals of the Europa League. Juventus face Sporting Club Portugal. Manchester United have drawn Sevilla. Feyenoord Roma, Leverkusen, Union SG. Takes us to the semi-finals where Man United could face Juventus or Sporting, and then Roma could face either Leverkusen or Sporting SG. This is big for Manchester United. I think this is a good draw. A lot of European pedigree in this draw, and I quite like that. I don't want the Europa League to be this kind of boring competition where, you don't face any of the sort of traditional European sides. That semi-final with Juve would be absolutely fantastic. Again, reminiscent of the 99 final where Manchester United came back from the death with Roy Keane inspiring United to victory. In terms of Manchester United, of course, they faced Real Betis in the Europa League. Game was done in that first leg, 4-1. Yesterday, Marcus Rashford stole the show with an absolute banger from outside the box, but could have been more clinical, could have taken some chances. He missed 2 big chances in the game. But the sort of tie was over after his rocket from about 30 yards. Manchester United progressing through to the final. In terms of, obviously, the favourites going into the latter stages, pardon me, Juventus are obviously there. They beat Freiburg 3-0 on aggregate. Not the best Juve team we've ever seen, but they're starting to gain a little bit of momentum. You're looking at Vlahovic in that attacking slot, but also off the bench, Chiesa obviously has had a lot of injuries over the last few years, but when in form and when in fitness, one of the best wingers in European football, so a big danger for Man United. Obviously, Arsenal lost on penalties to Sporting Club Portugal yesterday, 5-3 on penalties, which again, I think Arsenal probably should be focusing on the Premier League title anyway. Arsenal fans, do get into the chat and let me know. Ryan, we could get Mourinho in the final. That is pretty scary because obviously Mourinho unbeaten in UEFA competition finals. Porto versus Monaco in the Champions League. Inter versus Bayern in the Champions League. And of course Manchester United versus Ajax in the Champions League. That is quite scary. I probably would have preferred to face Mourinho over 2 legs. But, this Man United team is a different beast. A real different beast. Obviously Sporting coming into the game with Juventus in good form as well. Let's jump over to the Champions League. One of the greatest tournaments in the world, just secondary to, of course, the Europa League. The UEFA Champions League has pulled out a number of really interesting ties. We got the all-Italian affair. Napoli versus AC Milan. Inter faced Benfica, who won their game against Club Brugge, 7 goals to 1 aggregate. A real good team to watch. You've also got on the other side of the draw the 2 English teams. Real Madrid face Chelsea. Once again, we've seen that tie quite a few times over the years, recent years in European football. And Bayern Munich versus Man City. This is going to be an absolute banger of a game. Pep Guardiola versus Julian Nagelsmann. This is the hipster's wet dream. The possession football nerds' wet dream. This should be an absolute banger. Let's just hope the Bayern Munich don't go too far of pulling something wild like Guardiola does, and they go on to win the game. Manuel in the chat, Kane or Osimhen? Kane right now, Osimhen for the future. In there, Imad. A lot of talk about Imad Diallo in the chat yet. Very impressive. Been playing either 10 or wide right. Really rotates positions with Patrick Roberts on the right wing. They've got a great understanding. Love what he's doing. He's developing. He's getting better. Definitely needs another year of development, but we're starting to see really promising things of Imad. This is live. This is live. We are live right now. Any of your questions, do get them in. And yeah, drop a like, guys. We've only got 9 likes. We're not even on 10 likes. Come on. Smash that like button right now. A real clash of the Titans from Saeed. Ed in the chat. This might be the first game where both teams get 100% possession. The thing with Bayern is that if they play their kind of the correct game that we know that they can get to, the levels that Bayern Munich can get to, City are really going to struggle. The issue is Bayern are quite hit and miss under Julian Nagelsmann. In certain games, they'll blow teams away. In other games, they'll struggle a little bit with their build-up, with how they're playing. So it could be one of these games like the recent game in the Bundesliga, the 5-3 with Augsburg, where we just see City score, Bayern score, City score, Bayern score. It's going to be an absolute corker of a game. Bayern Munich very much kind of switching to a 3 at the back system under Julian Nagelsmann this season. Davies, João Cancelo at wing-back against Augsburg, with João Cancelo a goal and an assist, one big chance created. But you'd expect Kingsley Coman to start in that position against Manchester City. He's been in great form. He's arguably one of Bayern's best players in Europe this season, in the Champions League, really making things happen in that competition. Especially the PSG performance was absolutely outstanding on that on the left-hand side, but also played on the right-hand side as well. Very fluid player. So it's going to be a corker. The Champions League is just heating up. And I tell you what, Napoli have got to be favourites to make the final. They really have. They were brilliant midweek against Frankfurt. They really kind of controlled the game, and then in the second half they just pushed through. Victor Osimhen, a fantastic header, a brilliant second goal as well. 3 out of 3 of his shots on target, 2 out of his 4 dribbles. In terms of his style, he is very much a centre forward, and I think what Man United might need is someone that drops off the line a little bit more and does get involved in the play, does open up that space for Marcus Rashford, for Bruno Fernandes, and so forth. So I think he's a brilliant centre forward, Victor Osimhen, and I wouldn't say no. But I think United need maybe a Harry Kane type forward, or probably my favourite forward at the moment in European football, Randell Muani. Obviously missed that humongous chance in the World Cup final, but he's been in really good form since the World Cup. Goals, assists, and the variation of his goals, very, very good. He's also a player that will drift off the line. Will link with his teammates, kind of that classic sort of Thierry Henry style forward, bit of a winger, but he's actually playing in that centre forward position. I think could be really good for Man United's fluidity. See how involved he is, wide left, wide right. Real top player. I think United have got a great position because as much as those 3 strikers, should I say, could join, Vlahovic as well is someone that I think you get a good value right now. He's not having his best season in terms of, goals. Only 8 goals in 17 games and 2 assists. And he went for a bit of a run without a goal in 6 games. You could get him for a bit cheaper. Has massive potential. In a possession-based side is brilliant as well. The football that Fiorentina played with him as a 9, very, very good. Juve are in a mess right now. You could drop in there, offer them some cash, get Vlahovic in. I think you could be looking at worse forwards in European football. I think on his day is one of the best finishers in the entirety of the world. Put him up with Ruud van Nistelrooy. He's got that type of finishing ability in there. But yeah, get all your thoughts in on chat, guys, and we'll start to start to talk Premier League. Again, this is the Premier League preview, but we do have the FA Cup back this weekend as well, so we'll be talking about Man City's game with Vincent Kompany's Burnley, Man United's game with Fulham as well. We've got some tactical analysis for that. I'm going to be answering the question as well, does Erik ten Hag need to rest Bruno Fernandes? I'm going to try and go through that as a bit of a viewpoint on that, because again, a lot of people have certain opinions, so I just want to give you my opinions on that as well. Syed, what do you think of Ramos? I think Ramos needs maybe one more season at Benfica, maybe 2 more seasons at Benfica to get to that top level. I like him. I think he's got a lot of quality, but I'd put the forwards I've mentioned ahead of him in the pecking order and in the queue right there. Rowan Chopra in the chat, people saying no to Harry Kane. He's Premier League ready. Yeah, again, look, Harry Kane is literally, having one of his best ever seasons. He's scored 20 goals in just 27 games in the Premier League. He's absolutely flying. And he's a striker of immense quality in front of goal. You think some of the chances that Wout Weghorst has maybe missed recently, he's someone that would instantly come in and score goals. Instant solution, Premier League ready. Contract expires next season. Like, what if I was Man United? What I'd do is I'd get him on a free transfer. That's what I'd be working towards. And I do think United need a forward that can play, 10, 9, potentially can play out wide. That's why I quite like Muani in that sense, because he can operate in all those roles. What I like about Harry Kane is you could play him as a second striker behind Marcus Rashford in certain games with either Bruno Fernandes deep or Bruno Fernandes wide, and that would be a great way to open it up. Jonathan David, Marcus Thuram. Both top quality players. I've watched Jonathan David since he played in Belgium. Always been a forward I like. I think he is someone as well that's very flexible, wide left, wide right, 10, striker. Real good appreciation of support play and linking. Marcus Thuram's an interesting one. I'd probably take him for a smaller fee, but I wouldn't go out there and spend a lot of money on bringing him in. I think he's good, but not great. Lautaro Martinez seems to be a player that suits playing with another centre forward. I'm not sure he's a kind of number 9 for United type player. He's obviously got immense finishing quality, but I think he bounces off another player like a Romelu Lukaku. Like that, they work so well in tandem because they both need a partner. So there'll be my question marks, where of course someone like Harry Kane has played as a solo forward for a lot of his career, and obviously his link with Heung-min Son is pretty sublime. But anyway, Premier League this weekend, obviously Liverpool Fulham postponed, Brighton Man United postponed, and Man City West Ham postponed, all for the FA Cup. In terms of games I want to kind of focus on in the Premier League, we're going to chat about a few of them. But I think first and foremost, obviously the news that Crystal Palace have let Patrick Vieira go. As you can see by their recent form on SofaScore, absolutely atrocious. Without a win in 10 games. One of the concerns for me was the quality of squad and player versus what we see on the pitch. When you look at some of the talents that they've got, Michael Lisse, Eze, even Chet Decore midfield, humongous fan of him. Then Zaha, Oderson, Edouard, there's some real quality going forward. And I don't think we've actually seen Palace really blow teams away. I think one of the games that I kind of think about when I'm thinking about Crystal Palace playing well this season was one of their performances against Aston Villa in the Premier League, where they were absolutely brilliant. They were fantastic. Zaha, Eze in midfield, really, opening the game up and control. And there was another one as well against Aston Villa following the World Cup, maybe? No, maybe it was that game that they put in a really good performance against Aston Villa. But you just want more from some of their players, you really do. And I think from an attacking perspective, goals have been a massive problem in the last 10. You're thinking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 goals in the last 10. And Vieira's brought in for that. I think that's the big thing. Roy Hodgson, so solid defensively with Crystal Palace. And I think with Vieira coming in, it was to free them up. It was for them to be more offensive. And quite frankly, they've been very, very poor from an attacking sense. They sit too much in games. They don't really, go out there and open people up. And when you've got players of such unique skill sets and talents, such as a Lisse, such as an Eze, you've got to be taking people on. I think that's was a big problem with the side. Again, there's a real lack of identity. One of the big things, well, attacking fullbacks, something that's not been addressed at Crystal Palace. They very much play defensively minded fullbacks in Mitchell and in Nathaniel Klein, and the system just wasn't quite right. Wasn't a fan of the system. And obviously Vieira's gone with Palace sitting comfortably in mid-table, which I think the next manager that comes into Crystal Palace is going to be really important to have a look at what they want to do with kind of, building it out. Look, someone that would be a mistake potentially would be a Frank Lampard type manager. I think they need someone that's going to be a coach, that's going to coach them to play offensive football, that's going to allow them to, open teams up. Lucien Favre, Bielsa. I feel like they need somebody like of that ilk. In there, obviously, the likes of Mauricio Pochettino, Enrique, Thomas Tuchel, Zinedine Zidane, all out of work. Probably not, in Palace's price range. You're thinking Steven Gerrard's in there. Probably, again, wouldn't be someone I'd avoid. Rafa Benitez I'd avoid. Lampard I'd avoid. Nathan Jones I'd avoid in there. Hasenhüttl I'd probably avoid. Peter Bosz could be interesting for a bit. Jesse Marsch, I don't know if his style's quite right for the Premier League. Bielsa would be kind of a good appointment. Would be interesting to maybe see Andre Villas-Boas back in the Premier League. Someone like Lucien Favre as well has kind of had a long-term want in there. Would avoid someone like Scott Parker. So there's a few managers out there that Crystal Palace could look at with the idea of bringing one in. But I think it's a big appointment because they've moved the team on. I think that's what you got to give Vieira a bit of credit for, is they've moved... sorry, I'm having a bit of problem with my eye. There we go. Vieira's obviously moved the squad on, moved the team on, but I think there needs a proper coach in there to start to help them dominate, guys. Let me know in the chat, who do you think should be the next manager? Postecoglou was a great shout, Ryan, but I doubt, would he leave the project at Celtic right now to move to Palace? I think would be a brilliant appointment, 100%. Someone like Vincent Kompany. Could Palace, pull him away from Burnley? Probably not right now, because Burnley probably going to get promoted, but very, very interesting. So with the Premier League, obviously big games this weekend. Arsenal are facing Crystal Palace in the league. And I think the big one for Arsenal, obviously, playing 120 minutes plus penalties, is going to be tough for them to kind of bounce back. Of course, they did rotate the team with the likes of Gabriel Jesus, coming back into the lineup, back into the starting 11. Rotating the likes of Vieira in, Jorginho in, Reece Nelson in, Tomiyasu in. I think the worry for me for Arsenal is that Zinchenko and Martelli both played 120 minutes. It is easier with, playing at home in the Europa than playing at home again. But those two players have been so crucial in recent weeks for Arsenal. I think both have been absolutely phenomenal, Zinchenko and Gabriel Martinelli, that it could be a difficult game for Arsenal. Again, we all talk about the new manager bounce. Players seem to, grow in those first few games because they want to showcase what they're doing and so forth for the new manager that's going to come in. But it could be a bit of a worry. I think the good thing that Arsenal obviously rotated the likes of Ødegaard and Saka. Obviously, Saka coming on the 66th minute and Ødegaard coming on the 101st minute. Trossard playing, over a half, 45 minutes in the game, and then obviously 30 added time. It's going to be a tough game for us. I really think it will be tough. And I think this is now looking at Arsenal's squad and the strength of the squad in there. Trossard probably coming in through the middle. Could potentially see Gabby Jesus playing wide left. Chat, what do you think of that? Yeah, again, Arsenal have really got to kind of look at what they've got in terms of options. Gabriel Jesus was replaced in the game against Sporting. So it could be quite an interesting 11 that Mikel Arteta selects, just because of the injuries, but also the kind of the length of the game. Let's jump back into the Arsenal things. Let's have a look at the substitution. So, obviously Ben White coming on for Tomiyasu and Rob Holding coming into the fray. So we could potentially see both of those two start the game. I think more interestingly, it's kind of how their midfield will line. You'd expect Partey to come in. You'd probably expect Saka to come in. Maybe could see Trossard wide left. That could be quite an interesting one. So from a tactical perspective, could see, Ben White move to centre-back if Tomiyasu's okay. Or, of course, if not, bringing in Rob Holding. But kind of building it with Jesus, Odegaard, Xhaka Partey. Potentially could see the likes of Tierney coming in from the left-back position. But I mean the fluidity of that left-hand side. Obviously, Trossard's got a great relationship with Gabriel Martinelli already in terms of the interchange. So could see that quite a lot, making them quite difficult. Of course, for my fantasy team, I massively need Martinelli to start again. But after playing all out that football, you'd expect them to definitely be rotated out for sure. Bielsa's a good shout in terms of managers for Crystal Palace. Brought Odegaard on just for pens seems a bit wild for me. Bielsa would fit from Mahad, especially with Palace getting much better defensively than Leeds were. Ed, random shout, I really like Russell Martin. Russell Martin is the manager of which championship team is it again? Is it Championship? Yeah, Swansea City. I think you always get value from getting Swansea City managers. I think that's a really good suggestion in the chat. Nice one. But in terms of the actual game, I think when you're looking at the lineups and how Arsenal need to kind of unlock the door against Crystal Palace, Palace are a team that really slow you down. They do sit quite deep. They work supremely well off the ball. The one concern for Crystal Palace is their goalkeeping situation, which is a little bit of a worry for them. Obviously, with the likes of Gaeta out injured at the moment, Joe Whitworth has come in, made his professional debut against Brighton on Wednesday, conceding once. He has a post-shot expected goals of minus 0.2, small sample size. So that's something that Arsenal could really catch out if they can get some early shots on goal, test him out, see whether he's got it from not only a save perspective, but also from a ball playing perspective as well. I think high pressure could be good. But in terms of the kind of the Palace games, they do slow teams down. I was quite frustrated with the United game against Crystal Palace. It was very slow, very turgid from Palace. They didn't offer much on the counter-attack. They sat quite deep and defended. But I do think someone like Martin Odegaard's got a really good opportunity. Bruno Fernandes was fantastic against Crystal Palace at Old Trafford with his drifting. I think Odegaard, obviously coming off the bench late in the game against Sporting, could get a bit of freedom in that number sort of 10 area. So again, I think Odegaard's key player. Saka's obviously been rested against Sporting, which is good. Him being fresh is always a positive. He's played so much football for his young age, and I think he's the type of player to really unlock the door again with the deep block 1v1 with Tyreek Mitchell, could be a real good avenue for Arsenal. Guys, get into the score predictions into the chat. Bang them in right now. Palace should go with Claudio Ranieri. That would be nice. GG's to everybody. Sup, United discussion already done, Radu. We are not there yet. John Herdman is the Canada manager. Very good at the World Cup. Could be a bit of a too big jump right now. Potentially, Mahad. I think they need someone that could set a style for Palace with all their young players and kind of, inspire them in the long term to really grow. Chet Decore is a fantastic midfielder. Elise is a brilliant attacker. I think it's getting the right players in the right systems. Michael Carrick is a shout, but I doubt he'd leave Middlesbrough right now just because he's doing such a good job there. Daniel Tomiyasu left on crutches. Interesting, so he definitely won't play then. Thanks for that, Daniel. Ed, 1-1 draw, new manager bounce, and tiredness will affect Arsenal. Syed's going to go 3-2. Arsenal win. Interesting stuff. So, Premier League's going to absolutely fly through. Other games to kind of maybe watch out for. Tottenham versus Southampton. That's got the potential to absolutely blow up with Pedro Porro and Heung-min Son. Chelsea, obviously resurgent, face Everton in the late kickoff. Their front three's looking good. I want to see more of Mudryk for Chelsea starting games. He came off the bench did he come off the bench? Did he start? No, he started this one. No, he started this one for Chelsea. And I think he could add some sort of real dynamic element to their forward line. Obviously, with Havertz, Joao, Felix, and Sterling, they don't have any like raw pace. So I'd quite like to see Mudryk come in and maybe operate in that number 9 area or making those moves from out to in. Kai Havertz, obviously, he's kind of back in form right now. He's looking good. Still missing big chances, but the football that he's been playing in sort of the last 4 games has been kind of spot on under Graham Potter. The Dortmund game, the Leicester game, he's starting to kind of grow, hopefully back into what he was, what everyone's kind of believed that he was as a footballer. It's going to take him some time to win the Chelsea fans back over, but 23 years old, all the talent in the world, could be a massive player for Chelsea. But let's move on to the FA Cup games. I think there's some real interest in the FA Cup this weekend. Of course, from a Manchester perspective, both Manchester City and Man United are in the draw for the quarterfinals, and probably both the favourites, going into these games, the semis and the finals. City face Vincent Kompany's Burnley tomorrow in the Premier League, in the FA Cup, in the Premier League next season. And I think Burnley's an interesting sort of topic of conversation because they are absolutely flying in the Championship. 83 points from just 37 games. And what Vincent Kompany has done there is extremely, extremely impressive. And obviously the quotes from Guardiola from this week about, Kompany being the long-term replacement for Guardiola, it's got potential. When you look at Burnley and how they play, it's fascinating. There's a lot of Guardiola-isms in the style of football, from them building with their fullbacks inside, to having their wingers wide, to attacking with 5 players, to playing from out from the back. There's a lot of really good similarities between the two teams. And I think first and foremost, one of the interesting things from a, perspective of their lineup is their shape is really, really fluid. And it's kind of interesting to see and to describe how they kind of play. For me, it's very much a 4-2-3-1 with inverted fullbacks. So let's take a look at how they kind of move off the ball. So the first goal they scored against Hull City in the Championship, the movements we saw was Goodmanson moving into that number 10 area. Teller operating inside right, Vitinho and Zauri wide, and then we saw Maddison building with a back 3, and very much Roberts in midfield. And this kind of like attacking shape we've seen from City over the years, over and over again, this kind of 3 base, 2 in midfield with an inverted fullback and 5 up front. We're seeing that for City at the moment. This is what Burnley are doing right now with Connor Robertson. That was for their first goal that Nathan Teller scored. The second goal, we had a slightly different variation where Cullen was joined by Maddison and Roberts in midfield. And then we had the classic kind of MW shape that we've seen from City over and over again. But this time we had like Barnes slightly off the line, creating that kind of diamond shape in midfield to progress. Vincent Kompany looks like a very, very good manager. Guys, do get into the comments and in the chat if you want to see us do a tactical video on Burnley. That was kind of just brushing over some of the tactical side of their games. But if you wanted us to kind of dive into that with a bit more detail, do get into the chat and let me know. Got score predictions already coming in for this game. Dan's going 2-0 Burnley. Syed's going to go 2-0 to Manchester City. We've also got Dan saying 1-0 to Crystal Palace in the Premier League game. And Radu, Kompany setup and implementation at City with Burnley from the past is incredible. Looks like we've got 3 Pep disciples in the Premier League next season, maybe 4 if Luis Enrique rumours are true. Arteta, Kompany, and who is the other disciple in the Premier League, guys? Get into the chat and answer that question. Do let me know. Get in there. Get in there right now. But yeah, big game for Man City. Just have another look at one of the Burnley shapes and structures. More of that 4-2-3-1. But if we look at the average positions, we can kind of see the makeup of that kind of front 5 line. I think the fluidity there between some more of a 4-1-4-1 type shape with, Barnes operating as the centre forward, but very much involved in the play. How heavy his heat map is in the final third, I think is testament to that back to goal, hold up play, link play that Barnes is kind of renowned for. Teller's obviously the one at the moment that's in scintillating form this season for Burnley. He's absolutely flying at the moment. 5 goals in his last 2 games, but 2 hat-tricks in his last 9 games, looking like a very, very good prospect going forward. Manchester City, on the other hand, are in weird form, to say the least. City are very hot and cold at the moment, in a sense of the levels of performance that we see week in, week out as weird. You know, you beat Leipzig 7-0 in a game where Haaland went absolutely off from a goal-scoring perspective. 5 goals in the game against Leipzig. His 5th hat-trick in all competitions, which is pretty incredible. Record goal scoring in the Champions League. Youngest player to reach 30 goals. Fastest player to reach 30 goals. Beat Ruud van Nistelrooy by 8 games. Did it in 25. Van Nistelrooy did it in 33. The man is an absolute phenom. But at times, I still don't believe City have got it right with him yet. I still feel that there's still more to come from this City team. It doesn't feel like they've got the best out of Haaland. I think one of the interesting things with this game, Haaland scores 5, but there wasn't anything tactical where I thought that is getting the best out of Haaland. That's the step they need to make for Haaland to score even more goals. It still feels a little disjoint in the final third. Haaland was very instinctive in the penalty area in this game. Was alive, was a classic penalty box striker. But there wasn't anything that I thought City had done that was revolutionary or a change where you think now this is the City that we kind of knew would explode in there. Kevin De Bruyne spent quite a bit of time out on the right wing, which was reasonably interesting. 4 chances created from that position, scored right at the death. But it kind of feels a bit weird with City at the moment, and it's a good time for Burnley to play them in the Premier League. Keep saying the Premier League. In the FA Cup. I do think it should be too much of a challenge for Burnley to put something together here, but it'll be a great game of football. This is definitely one to watch for the weekend. City aren't direct enough on the counter. They always pass back instead of taking a risk from Mahad. Yeah, that's definitely one of the things that I believe they need to change. They need to understand that, to get the best out of Erling Haaland, those channel balls are absolutely vital. It's vital for him. It's vital for getting your team higher up the pitch. It's vital for, developing it. Ed in the chat didn't like the KDB right-wing experiment. Didn't work in my opinion. I think they were basically trying to build that diamond in midfield, but kind of right-sided. So Grealish would hold the width on the left, and De Bruyne would kind of come in and create that diamond. I think one of the big issues is we've not got a flying right-back. And that would make the shape a lot better. More of a kind of 3-6-1 shape with Cancelo high and wide on the right. They just don't have that flying right back that they need to facilitate this. And I just don't know if City will get to the best football this season. I think they need another summer to recruit around Haaland to get the best out of him. That being said, he might score another 5 this weekend. We can't rule it out. He is that good in the penalty area. Burnley's defensive record in the league is decent. They've conceded just 29 goals in 37 games. But at the same time, you've got to look at that level of Haaland, of him being the guy to carry them. But Burnley, again, you can't look past them. They've scored 74 goals in the Football League this season. No team in Europe's top 4 leagues have scored more. Ipswich have got 69 goals and they've 5 more than that. Teller's 16 goals in all competitions, more than Burnley's. Is Burnley's highest top scorer since Andre Gray in the 2015-16 season. But Haaland is the big one, breaking the records you mentioned before. He's averaging 19 touches per goal or assist in the Premier League this season. In the Champions League, it's 12 touches per goal, which is, again, interesting in 2 ways. Efficient? Yes. Can City utilise him more? Absolutely. In there, all of his shots he had against Leipzig midweek all hit the target. 8 shots, all on target. Probably could have scored 8 goals. Absolutely ruthless in there. But we could see Haaland rested and Julian Alvarez come in. City have got a lot of games, coming up. Liverpool, Southampton, then the double-header against Bayern Munich with Leicester City spliced in the middle, which is interesting from a fantasy football perspective. This is potentially where you could drop Haaland. You could get rid of Haaland. I am getting rid of Haaland for about 4 weeks, I think. So he'll miss 2 games. I'll have Haaland. I won't have Haaland for the Liverpool game, the Southampton game, or the Leicester City game. Yeah, I'm a crazy man, but we need to catch up some points. We really, really do in fantasy football at the moment. So, it's one of these situations where I've gone a bit crazy. I've got 11 players for this game week, including Son and Harry Kane. I really need you and Son to step up. Please, save me, Son. Save me. Get any of your fantasy questions into the chat. Right, score predictions for this game. Man City, Burnley. Do get them into the chat as well. Finally, let's talk about the big one on Sunday. Man United's 3rd quarter-final of the season. FA Cup this time. Fulham at home. United have been superb this season. Absolutely superb under Erik Ten Hag. And for them to be still in, won one competition and basically favourites for 2 other competitions. You got to give Erik Ten Hag a lot of credit for the job he's done in the Premier League. One of the debate points at the moment is around Bruno Fernandes, and that's kind of the title of today's video. Does Erik Ten Hag need to rest Bruno? Statistically, Bruno's played more minutes than any other player in the Premier League this season. And that potentially could be seen as a concern. When you overplay a player, the form can drop off a cliff. You can pick up injuries. You can, get a lack of performance from teammates through the rotation not happening and players not being able to play together with other options. But I would say with Bruno Fernandes that Erik Ten Hag does not need to drop Bruno Fernandes. He doesn't need to rest Bruno Fernandes. I think Bruno Fernandes is that type of player that can play week in, week out across the season, 50-plus games, and, not succumb to a lack of form or, a lack of a drop-off. And one of the big reasons why I bring this up is, obviously, the season Man United last got to a Europa League final was the 2020-21 season. And there was a lot of criticism of Bruno at the back end of that season. We're going to have a look at that in a sec and kind of dive through why I believe that it's fine to play Bruno Fernandes. And there's a lot of criticism of Bruno Fernandes in those last few games of that season. But actually, if we go back and we have a look at that season, his form was very, very good at the back end of that year, which is something we need to kind of look at. Bruno Fernandes in that 2020-21 run into the final, 2 of his best performances in the United shirt, kind of came in there. His 2 goals and 2 assists for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's Man United against Roma was absolutely sublime. And this was at the back end of the season. This was April. This is when Bruno was perceived to be tired. 6 chances created, 2 big chances created, 5 shots on goal. Bruno Fernandes absolutely destroyed Roma. But also in the Premier League, there were some good performances at the back of the Premier League season. A performance against Leicester City. That's the wrong year. What am I on about? Not Leicester City. I want to go back to the 2010. Performances against Aston Villa. Goals created from that right-hand side. Got goals against Liverpool in the Premier League. And I think in a sense it's become a little bit of a myth that his form dropped off. I agree he had a poor game in the Europa League final. I think that's definitely there. Like, Europa League final didn't have the greatest of games. I thought many players in that team didn't have great games. Pogba, Rashford, Harry Maguire, poor performances. So I think it's we've got to kind of look back to look forward in the sense of Bruno Fernandes is a player that has got that ability to play week in, week out. He's missed a single game for Man United since he joined through illness. He's had 1 injury since moving to Sampdoria, a leg injury in the 2019 season. Sorry for Sporting Lisbon. That was. And I just think Bruno's just a player that has that ability to play week in, week out. And I think with how he's playing at the moment and his role within the team right now, you just keep the guy's form going. Obviously ignoring the Liverpool game, which is a massive anomaly in United's season. The assists, the performances against Barcelona, against Real Betis at home, Thought he was fantastic against Real Betis away as well. And I think, look, I wouldn't be managing. I wouldn't be not starting Bruno Fernandes. I wouldn't be resting him. But I think, look, managing his minutes when United are up is good. You take the Betis game. Bruno Fernandes being brought off on the 68th minute, 30-minute rest. Relatively decent. He's a player that has that ability to go in, week out. So I don't think there's a massive problem with starting him. But anyway, they're my thoughts, guys. Get into the chat. I think Bruno's too important for United right now. His control, his work rate, his goals, his assists, how he defends in the transition, all massive things that Man United need right now. Chance he created for Rashford, the lovely reverse ball that he created for the chance he created for Sabitzer. I just think he's a player that's at the top of his game right now. So, keep him in this team, start him, and then take him off early would be the only way that I'd be kind of looking to rest him. But let's jump forward to the game this weekend. This is kind of more of a poignant topic. This is the game that United are playing this week. Man United Fulham on Sunday night. And of course, the big concern for Manchester United is who comes in for Casemiro. Casemiro out. Suspended following his red card last weekend against Southampton, which obviously is a bit of a concern. It's frustrating. So it's kind of which player operates in Casemiro's position, who plays the other midfield role. So I think first and foremost, obviously the options that United have got: Scott McTominay to come in, Casemiro to come in, Fred to come in. The interesting thing with United recently, though, we've seen Bruno Fernandes playing a deeper role, haven't we? We've been seeing Casemiro sitting in that number 6 position and Bruno operating in and around him. We've seen some really good performances. Real Betis at home was one of Bruno's best performances of the season, operating in this kind of deep-lying box-to-box role. The natural change would instantly just be bringing Marcel Sabitzer in to play that 6 role. He's done it for United. He's done it previously for Julian Nagelsmann's sides. So that's something that United could do. And I think with Sabitzer, what you get is, a little bit more ball playing at the base. More like combination play in and around the back 4. You get the ability to carry through as well. What you don't get with that is obviously the play of the play of kind of Casemiro's destroying. Would that leave United too vulnerable at the base of midfield? I'd be slightly concerned about that. When we've seen United kind of struggling games, it's when that protection's not been there, and we can go kind of to maybe the start of the season in certain games where Casemiro wasn't playing for Man United and wasn't in the kind of the first team. There was issues at the base of midfield with how United built up, how they progressed through. I think one solution, to bring the physicality back would be playing Scott McTominay and Marcel Sabitzer. I think that is an option. I think, you're looking at keeping that physicality, playing someone like Sabitzer more as an 8, putting Bruno back into that number 10 position could very much be an option. I think with Scott, obviously, kind of his role is limited to him holding, allowing Sabitzer to move from that deep position high. And I think one of the big things with this as well is the quality of Christian Eriksen in the reverse fixture was really, really important. Obviously scored and assisted the winner. His goal was a really nice break from midfield. But the winner was really good, how United really escaped Fulham's pressure well deep. They played through, connected wide, linked back inside, then the through ball came in and Rashford span in behind the defence. I think that's definitely something to kind of look at as one tactical reason why a Sabitzer McTominay midfield could be better. I think Fred, from a holding perspective, does not suit playing holding midfield. I think we've seen that enough to understand that's not the case. I don't think Victor Lindelof is an option in there. I think it's a bit too fast for him, and he's been played centre-back professional football for most of his career. Yeah, he's played at Benfica at 6, but when I've seen him at United at 6, not massively convinced. So, having McTominay in that position with Sabitzer playing as more of an 8 could be an option. one of the big selections for United as well is having the attacking fullbacks. So important against Fulham. Fulham are really susceptible for fullbacks joining the attack, either as a support option when they're wide or providing the natural overlapping play. And of course, we've got some examples of Man United's win against Fulham in the recent Premier League game. Man United winning that game. The late goal from Alejandro Garnacho's unfortunately out injured. That's so annoying, Garnacho being injured. Such a dodgy challenge. Penalty. Let's throw it out there. But yeah, Alejandro Garnacho out for the next few weeks, probably towards the end of the season, which is quite bad. But United utilised their fullbacks really well in this game, especially Luke Shaw on the left-hand side was really attacking in the final third. And this kind of brings on to our kind of tactical points. Some big chances United created from crossing opportunities. I think this is a game for Wout Weghorst, number 9, through the middle. Get some crosses from fullback into the box for him for United to score. So Man United created probably 4 or 5 very, very good chances in the first half. Should have gone in 3 goals up and by minimum. Anthony Martial missing, I think, 2 one-on-ones and this situation here. But I think the thing with Fulham is there's space at fullback to create. This is one instance. So Man United have attacked. Rashford has driven wide right with the ball. And Luke Shaw's in this kind of support position. This is a really good crossing position. United loaded the box really well against Fulham. It's something they need to do again with the likes of, Bruno, Rashford, potentially Anthony, depending on how the play is. Obviously, this is a wide left play. Rashford bringing the ball wide, cutting the ball back to Luke Shaw. But I think when you look at Fulham, they're quite static from a defensive position, and you can make these kind of deeper runs across the defenders. They do get kind of caught a little bit when making moves in the penalty area. And this is a solution for United. Go wide right with Rashford, allow him to pull the fullback into the wide area, cut the ball back for Luke Shaw to cross from that deep position. Again, Luke Shaw's ability to find the man in the box is very, very good. Anthony Martial should have given United the second goal in the game. Let's take a look at another option, this time drawing the fullback in and providing an overlap in the final third. We could see again how kind of broken Fulham's shape is. We could clearly see their back four. They're 2 kind of defensive midfield players, but their wingers tend to not drop back, hence why we have the space outside the box for Luke Shaw here. There should be a wide player basically dealing with that or doubling up on Rashford and then being aggressive on Luke Shaw on the pass. We see that again when you're providing the overlap here, with United utilising 3 runners on the back post. A simple thing. Luke Shaw's got 3 options there. Find Rashford, find McTominay, find Bruno Fernandes at the back stick. But it's too easy from a defensive position. Fullbacks aren't protected. And I think that's a big reason why United need to go with aggressive ball-playing fullbacks of Diogo Dalot and Luke Shaw against Fulham. Again, Luke Shaw found his pass, unfortunately, headed over the bar. Right, let's move on to our other tactical point. Fulham press high in the Premier League. They squeeze you high. They are ruthless. We saw a great example of Arsenal playing through for their first goal last week, where Arsenal drew them to the right-hand side of the pitch. They then switched through Granit Xhaka. Simple combination play, and Martinelli opened up the scoring. We've got a good example of this in the Man United for the winner. Man United's game against Fulham. Fulham squeezing high, 92nd minute. The big thing is if you've got the composure, but also the movement to play through, you can really get at Fulham's 2 defensive midfielders and their back 4. Again, the protection's not there. So Man United are building out from the back. Martinez, Shaw, good combination play, drops it to Casemiro. The thing why I think Sabitzer is the right guy for this job is the lateral movement that Eriksen makes here is something I've seen Marcel Sabitzer do before. Scott McTominay can be playing as the fixed point and Sabitzer can be moving off him to get into these areas that Christian Eriksen gets into right now. I think from this moment, Fulham have got a problem. United have already taken out 3 players out of the game already with a quick combination play in their own penalty box, which leaves Paulinho massive space to defend. Paulinho's been brilliant in the Premier League this season, the only player to win over 100 tackles in the Premier League this season, but he's a very aggressive player. You can coax him out of that number 10 area, which means you can utilise that number 10 area for 1-2s. So we've got to jump back into the play. Casemiro plays wide. Christian Eriksen receives in the final third. You can see Paulinho, he's looking to try and block the pass to Eriksen, but as soon as Eriksen receives, he's super aggressive, vacating that kind of number 10 area, or number 6 area, should we say, from a defensive perspective. There's something Man United could do. Again, Willian's defensive position is poor, something you can get at Fulham. Their back four is very, very much exposed from that one move. You know, playing out from the back, Casemiro going wide, Eriksen drawing the pressure, and then making that move inside. Good carry from Garnacho. Eriksen now is in a position where he's behind the opposition's defensive midfielder. Again, Paulinho's focused on the ball. Eriksen's going to run off him and run into number 10, which consequently means the centre-back needs to move out of position, which opens up the space for Garnacho to run in behind. All this is so consequent. Play out from the back, draw that DM wide, utilise the 10 space afterwards with a little 1-2, wide player scores goals. And this is why I think we've got to see Weghorst through the middle and Marcus Rashford wide right, making these types of movements in behind the defence and finishing off. Garnacho with a really good finish off his left foot for Manchester United. But going back to my team selection, that's why I'd like to see McTominay as that fixed pivot. Sabitzer operating as the number 8, giving him a free role. Oh, pardon me. Rashford wide left, again we mentioned there, the 1-2s, you know, drawing people in, carrying, then popping a 1-2, and then finishing off. I think with, in the final third, having Weghorst as a threat in the box is important as well. As we mentioned, the fullbacks, not only, you know, dropping off when, you know, there's a deep cross back, but also on the overlap to get at Fulham. I think that's very, very important in this game. I'd go with Delo over Wan-Bissaka and Luke Shaw over Tyrell Malacia. Guys in the chat, what did you make of that little bit of analysis? Would you start Pellistri? No, I don't think I'd start Pellistri. If Anthony's fit, got to start Anthony. I think Pellistri was decent in the game against Real Betis. I thought he's intense, he's direct. Needs to improve his decision making, of course. Is a young player. I'd like to see him hold the width a lot more. You know, natural right footer. I'd like to see him go down the line, down the byline, and cross with that right foot. But I do like his movement in behind the defence. Is he at the same level as Alejandro Garnacho right now in terms of development? Probably not. So he is behind the pecking order of Jadon Sancho on the right, of Anthony at the moment. So, look, I think he's got quality. I think he's got ability to improve. We need to see that improvement. Do I think Bruno Fernandes is world-class? Dave. Manuel, I think Bruno Fernandes has played at a world-class level in previous seasons. I think he's getting back up to that world-class level right now. I think he's one of the best attacking midfielders in the world, or even central midfielders with him playing deep. Syed, in my opinion, Sancho should start on the right. If Anthony's fit, I think Anthony's the best option. The other option for Jadon Sancho is to go for a super crazy midfield. Look, I'd like to see this, but it's a little bit wild. So instead of Scott McTominay in there, I've just clicked the wrong button again. So instead of Scott McTominay in the base of midfield for Manchester United, you would be seeing the likes of Sabitzer holding and Sancho playing as a 10. So Bruno deep in midfield, Sabitzer holding, Bruno playing that kind of 3-8 role, Sancho, Martinez, Lindelof, Delo. So I think Sancho in this system would be better as that kind of number 10. We've still got that Bruno Fernandes ability to drive wide and combine with a left winger. We've also got Sancho's ability to move. The only thing is it's a loss of work for Marcel Sabitzer. That's not to say he can't do that. I just think Fred's not good for this game because of how good Fulham are pressing. You don't want Fred to get caught out deep, hence why I think Sabitzer, Bruno Sancho, or Sabitzer, Bruno McTominay is definitely the best forward line. But Manuel, I think Bruno Fernandes is getting back to that world-class level. But guys, there'll be my thoughts for today. Get your score predictions in for Manchester United versus Fulham in the Premier League. Any more questions? Smash the like button as well, guys. We're only on 47 likes, so we can do better than that. We can do better than that. But yeah, get your score predictions in right now. And any other questions? Last little questions for today. Again, my fantasy team is looking pretty tasty for this weekend. The Son-Kane duo is back, and these two saved my FPL season last season. Sayed's going to go 3-0 Man United home win. Mahad saying Jadon Sancho played really well at 10 against Southampton up until Casa got sent off. Yeah, I agree with that. I would like to see this midfield. This is pure vibes midfield. This is like me being obsessed with possession football midfield. You do have to have that, sometimes that defensive solidity. Obviously, Rafael Varane at centre-back as well in there. 2-1, Ryan's going. Dan's going to go 4-0 Man United. Syed, random, but do you watch the UFC? I watch Paddy Pimlico, I think, from time to time. But not much. Lord, no more FM videos. I've not really played that much FM this season. I don't know. I've not found a save that I'm really involved with after winning the Champions League with Atalanta last season. That was just so much fun. Zaniolo, Luca, and Raspadori, the champions. Milinkovic-Savic in midfield. What a team I built. Manuel, love that midfield. Look, I love that. This is a pure vibes midfield. I'd love to see it. Don't get me wrong. Guys, that has been that for today's stream. Manuel, last question. Vlahovic or Osimhen? Vlahovic, for sure. Great questions. We'll be back on Monday for the Premier League review. We've got content coming out next week on Man United shape, on Arsenal as well, and how they are going to sort of see out the Premier League title win, in my opinion. I think the Europa League, as much as it's a frustration for Arsenal fans, it's probably a good thing for their title hopes. Not going to be playing Thursday night anymore. One game a week. We've seen Leicester do that. We've seen Chelsea do that in recent years. This is how you do it in the Premier League. But big GGs in the chat. Smash that like button. And we will be back very, very soon on the Statman Dave Clips channel. Much love, and hopefully Erik Ten Hag is watching and can play this midfield on Sunday. Big GGs. Have a great weekend. Go give your mum a hug, and we'll see you later. Good night, guys.